What's up, everybody? First off, happy 4th of July. You will be seeing this, sadly, on the 5th of July, but that's all right. Just know that Brutal wished you a happy 4th of July. Now, what are we gonna be talking about today? Something that has been highly requested on my channel. I don't know what it is, but people have questions about vacuum routing on these cars. Now look, I am no Fox body guru. I'm not Neo Mustangs, okay? I don't know all the ins and outs of all like EGR stuff because, man, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Through the years, I've just unplugged that stuff. There are some vacuum lines that run over that way. Guys, that's not what this video is about. Let's go ahead and clarify what it is that we're trying to accomplish in this video. Basically, what I want to do is cover, let's say if you're going to a different intake and you're unsure of where to plug your vacuum lines in. That's basically what we're talking about today, and I want to give you a decent understanding of how like vacuum works, if you will. So as you can see, I've got the Retro Fox out here as well. That way we can look at some stock configurations. So when would you need to know something like this? Well, if you're changing intakes, a lot of times they're completely different. I'll try to throw up a couple of pictures for you guys just to show you something that you might run into, right, with one of these intake swaps. Or maybe you're doing just a custom build in general. It doesn't matter. First off, let's look at all the vacuum routing on this, right? I can see to where that gets confusing to a lot of guys. I can see that. What I can do is tell you that vacuum is not the monster that everybody makes it out to be, right? Everybody just assumes that vacuum is hard, right? It's got to go in a specific port, right? So if this vacuum line over here plugs in like right here on this intake and you put a new intake on your car, there has to be a vacuum port right here because people think this vacuum is different from, say, a vacuum line that's plumbed in right here. Okay, well, what I want you to know immediately right off the bat, let's just go ahead and cut to the chase here. Typically, it does not matter. Vacuum is vacuum, guys. Before we dive too deep into this, there are exceptions to the rule. So the people that need to know this probably already do. So when it comes to boost reference, okay, let's talk about this for a second. This goes down to my wastegate, this vacuum. This particular vacuum needs to be in front of your throttle body. Boost is going to fill this tube up really, really quickly, right? And before the throttle body. If you put it back here, it has to fill the intake plenum and everything else. And the theory is it could be a little slow to read or to adjust your boost, if you will, on your wastegate. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the only time this really matters, like where your vacuum is hooked up, is because that's not only vacuum. On a turbo car or supercharged car, that's actually boost as well, right? It's vacuum when it needs to be, and then whenever the turbo starts making boost, that thing starts making boost. Anyway, outside of that, guys, vacuum is vacuum. So I had a lot of people ask me about this UPR vacuum block or vacuum tree back here. So let's take a closer look at this, guys. As you can see, it's a really simple setup, right? You got an inlet and you got an outlet, or an inlet and an outlet. It doesn't matter. That's the great thing about a setup like this, right? But let's talk about what this vacuum tree is doing in case you want to put something like this on your car, right? So the old plastic tees or vacuum blocks or whatever you want to call them, they're bad about breaking on these cars, and something like this is definitely, you know, something that you guys would probably like to upgrade to. So let's talk about it for a second. So let's say you mount this thing up, right? So you've unplugged all of your vacuum lines. You don't know where they go now. You just have stuff hanging around back here, and you bolt this thing up and you're just looking crazy. You're like, where do all these vacuum lines go? I don't have a clue. Does it go down here? Does it go here? Does it go here? All right, let's make this as simple as possible. Get you guys over here, maybe you have a better view. Okay, you have to think about what this vacuum block is doing. All it's doing is taking a vacuum source, which is, well, just so happens to be on the back of this intake, and you're taking that source. Your engine is your vacuum, right? So think of your intake as your vacuum source. That's what it is. So you can pull, typically it's going to be a bigger line like this, just for the volume. So you're going to pull that up into one side of this. It doesn't even matter, guys. You could actually bring it in the bottom if you wanted to, but typically these lines are too small for that. So it's best just to bring it in on one of these sides. Now it's convenient to just bring it in over here on this end. Obviously, as you can see, it's a really short run, right? So now this block has vacuum in it. This is essentially an intake now, right? whatever vacuum this intake is seeing, this block is seeing as well. So now what this does is allows you to not have to plug in all of these different vacuum sources and hoses and all this stuff on your intake. It can all now be handled right here. Well, you might be saying, well, there's not enough fittings right here. Well, believe it or not, there are 1, 2, 3 more fittings underneath here. I just didn't need to use them. This kit comes with new nipples. So you just take out the plug that's here and put another nipple in right there. Same thing here, same thing there. So you can have up to 6 vacuum sources across the bottom that then you can power off right from this right here. So you know you have to get vacuum around to your brake booster, right? Well, that's what this side typically is gonna be for. So vacuum in from your intake to here, and then out, if you will, to right here, right? So this block is gonna start pulling vacuum from this booster, allowing it to work. All right, so that gets your brake booster working, and that's just the way that I routed everything. You can do it any way you want to. Now from here, you can go ahead and literally just start plugging vacuum lines up. You can take all of those vacuum lines that used to be under this intake, under a stock intake, you can just start unplugging those. And if you wanted to, you could come in and put all 6 nipples in and put all 6 vacuum lines right there. You don't even have to have another vacuum source on your intake if you don't want to, other than the main source that powers this block. Now, I know that may sound confusing and it's really hard to kind of explain, but let me give you another option here. Let me just show you just how insignificant it is as to where you plug your vacuum up at. Now, you know you have to power your brake booster, right? This has to happen. So let's say you don't even want to do any of this. Let me show you how easy this will be. You could take this hose right here from your brake booster, just pull it off and plug it directly back into the intake. Can you believe that? I know that sounds crazy, but guys, this is the same thing. Literally unplug this, take your brake booster line and plug it into the back of the intake or the front of the intake or the top of the intake, wherever you have something at, right? And then you don't even have to have this vacuum block. You know what you can do then? You can come over here and grab each one of those vacuum lines right here, bring it around here if you wanted to, put a line with a T in and start plugging them in here. My point, I know that seems ridiculous. Why would you be telling me to do that? My point is, guys, the vacuum source doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Now, you're gonna have different size vacuum lines. You're gonna say, well, surely that's not the same amount of vacuum as one of those big lines over there, right? Surely this little red vacuum line is not getting the same vacuum as that, right? Wrong. It actually is getting the exact same vacuum. It just doesn't need the volume to operate what it needs to operate like that does. Think of it this way. This thing needs a big mechanical advantage, right? So this vacuum is providing a mechanical advantage. So you need a lot of volume, right? So that's why this hose is bigger. To operate this fuel pressure regulator, it doesn't take much vacuum. That's why the vacuum line's small. Just for reference, let's go out here and look at this car and let's kind of look and see what we could clean up. All right, the vacuum source is coming in right here on this particular T. It's doing the same thing, guys. It's coming from the back of the intake and it's coming right in right here. It's all coming in back there at the back of your intake. So you got a lot of ports back here. If you change this intake out, you're gonna need somewhere to put all these lines, right? That's what I'm trying to say. All this stuff can be routed wherever you want to. So there is one line that I want to cover with you guys because this gets so many people in trouble. Let's say you do away with a lot of your vacuum, right? You're doing away with all this crap and you're trying to simplify things, but your AC doesn't work now or it doesn't blow out correctly. This little vacuum line right here goes into your box, right? So this controls the flap, the door on your air conditioning or your heater box down there. So make sure that this little vacuum line right here is plugged into some source of vacuum. All right, look, I hope that helps. I wish I had an intake to show you. Don't be scared. The one thing that I do want to tell you is, let's say you get a very popular mod for these cars is an Explorer intake. Don't be concerned with all of the different vacuum like tubes that come out from underneath that thing that you're not familiar with. Guys, you can cut those tubes off if they're in the way. Like a lot of times those hang down and like really get close to your valve cover, and they're just an eyesore. If you don't want to use those things, you can cut them off and you can crimp them and fold them up a time or two, and maybe put like a little bit of a JB Weld or something like that on them and seal up the vacuum leak, and you're good to go. I do that all the time. All right guys, I hope that helps you out with the vacuum stuff. Don't be scared of it. Plug shit off. T stuff, Y stuff, it doesn't matter. It's gonna all work. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching.